Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Injury Law Pod. I am your host, Eric Bartlett, and this is the podcast where we talk about all things personal injury law related. And we started the new year by having a three-part series on being prepared for an accident, whether that's a car accident or otherwise, largely focused on car accidents. But we went through how to prepare just in case something does happen. And then we talked about the first 30 days after an injury happens. And then we talked about the long haul of an injury claim. And if you missed it, we'll put that up on the screen at the end of this episode so that you can be prepared and know what to do in the event you find yourself with a personal injury claim. But now we're going to talk about work comp and what that looks like, give a foundation about work comp, what the system is, what it isn't, things like that. We're going to do a three-part series as well, just for the sake of making sure if you're hurt at work, you have a good understanding of what your rights are, what your rights aren't, where the system is limited, and how a lawyer like me can help. The key thing to remember about work comp, again, Missouri, Kansas is where I'm usually talking about, is the system feels unfair because it was designed to be limited. I've talked about this in the past. Somebody gets hurt, right? And usually workers' comp feels broken to them. And usually when somebody is going through a work comp claim, they feel shocked, not because they're unreasonable, but because no one explains the system to them ahead of time. They go into it thinking, my medical is going to be covered. I'm going to get weekly benefits if I have to be off work, and I'm going to get a settlement at the end, and it all should go very smoothly. But reality doesn't unfold that way all the time. Workers' comp is often the first time people experience a benefit system that doesn't care about fault, fairness, or feelings. And again, I get a lot of calls from people that have been hurt at work, and this is their first time ever reaching out to a personal injury lawyer. And I have to start by explaining to them, again, what work comp is and what it isn't. As I talk to people, I hear things like, this can't be right. They're explaining the situation that they're currently in. And again, they just feel like the deck is stacked against them. The system feels broken, but it's actually very structured. It's just not worker friendly. This was created by lawmakers to, in my opinion, protect employers from liability. You cannot sue your employer for a work comp claim. You are in the work comp system. And confusion comes from assuming this works like a car accident case, like I talked about in those prior episodes. But today is about learning the rules of the game because the rules don't change mid play. So here's how the trade off in work comp unfolds. It's a no fault system. So we don't care how the accident happened. You can be completely at fault for hurting yourself, and you're going to be covered under the work comp system. Employees, though, they give up the right to sue their employer for that coverage. And employers provide guaranteed but limited benefits. So let's look at the big picture. An injury happens at work. An employer reports that injury to their insurer and to the state of Missouri. The insurer controls the benefits that are provided to the injured worker, and then an administrative law judge resolves any disputes that arise along the way. Benefits, this is important to keep in mind. The benefits that you're to get in a work comp claim, they are set by statute. That is, they are set by law and not by what feels fair. Very important to keep in mind. Nobody in this system is evaluating how bad your life has changed. At the end of the day, The system just doesn't care. It's all about the injury, getting the treatment, and then whatever residual disability you have remaining when you're done getting your medical treatment. One way to look at it is this system isn't emotional, it's mathematical. Common surprises to workers are that there's no pain and suffering. I get asked a lot by my work injury clients, what about pain and suffering? What about everything I went through? All those nights I couldn't sleep, all those moments I missed in life because of this injury. There is no pain and suffering allowed in work comp. There's also no compensation for inconvenience. And again, maybe that's having to make weekly trips to physical therapy, right? That's on your own. You don't get compensated for that. There's only partial wage replacement. So again, if you're off work completely, the law sets an amount that you're going to get every week in work comp benefits. And that's based off of your average weekly wage before you got hurt. And then there's caps involved. There's maximums that you can receive. And in this system, there's no jury and there are no jury verdict. And this whole setup causes anger among injured workers because they feel dismissed. A lot of times their interactions with work comp insurance companies is not a good one. They feel like they're being accused or exaggerating an injury, and the system doesn't validate their suffering. Workers' comp doesn't deny pain, it just doesn't pay for it. So let's talk about for a minute what medical care in workers' comp looks like and why it feels controlling. And what do I mean by that? The employer slash insurance company, they get to dictate your medical care. You don't get a choice. You're going to the doctors and the other medical providers that they say you're going to see. And again, if those medical people refer you on to somebody else, the insurance company has to approve that. So every step of the way, they're in control of your medical care. And again, this feels very overwhelming to an injured worker. Insurance, again, comes in, they control where you're going, if you're going, things like that. And doctors must justify every visit you have with them. So, what do workers experience in the work comp system? They experience short appointments, they experience conservative treatment, and they experience early return to work releases. So, a lot of times, these insurance companies are going to put a lot of pressure on these doctors to take it slow. Whereas if you had an injury that wasn't work related and you went to your doctor, they may very quickly order an MRI to figure out if you have a much more serious injury going on. But if you're in the work comp system, that doctor may say, let's give it some rest. Let's give you some medicine. You may end up a month, 2 months, 3 months before you ever get that diagnostic look like an MRI, something like that, to really identify what injury you have going on in the body part that you injured. If you feel rushed or unheard, you're not imagining it. It's a real experience. I hear it all the time. I see it all the time. The doctor's role is partly medical and partly administrative. Again, they are trying to get you treatment, but at the same time, they're limited by the constraints of that work comp insurance company paying for that treatment. This is a good thing to remember. Workers' comp doctors treat injuries, but they also manage cost. And that is the reality of the work comp system. So, what can help you prepare for a work comp claim so that you don't feel frustrated, that you don't feel that anger? And again, you may still feel it, but if you go in knowing a few things that may help you better understand why it seems like nobody really wants to help you. Number one, you have to understand delays in the work comp system are normal. Again, nothing moves quickly. Number two, you got to know that paperwork drives benefits. So again, you see a doctor, they create a medical record. That medical record has to go up the chain through the insurance company. And then again, based on what recommendations the doctor has, the insurance company people have to approve the next step. And it's really important. Everything is kept documented because, again, if it's not, that can create even more delay in getting you the care you need. Again, emotionally, you have to keep in mind the whole system is going to feel impersonal. You're going to feel like these people don't care about you. And I'm not here to weigh in one way or the other. It very well could be that they really don't care. They're moving you through the system. Again, they're feeling the pressure from that insurance company, which, by the way, is where they're going to get their next business, right? They're not going to get it from you. That insurance company regularly employs these doctors and other treaters, and they know they want to keep them happy. They don't necessarily care about keeping you happy. But keep this in mind. Persistence matters more than emotion. You've got to be the squeaky wheel. You've got to keep on top of them to keep it moving along. Progress isn't a straight line. It can be going and then it can go off track and then it can get back on track. So again, you have to be persistent, or you have to get a lawyer involved to put the pressure on the insurance company to get you the treatment you need and maybe the other benefits that you should be getting. So if you have an understanding these underlying aspects of work comp, you'll go into it with a lot lower expectations. Again, I think that most people, they come in to the work comp system thinking I was hurt at work. There's going to be medical care provided. There's going to be weekly benefits if I have to be off work, and I'm going to get a settlement at the end of this. But in any three of those phases, there can be problems. Again, your medical care may go very slowly. You may have a situation where that doctor is putting you on very limited work restrictions or not even putting you completely off work when you are complaining that the injury you have is preventing you from doing your job. And again, you can try, you can push, you can do everything you can to try to make that doctor listen to you. But again, generally their loyalties are with the insurance company, and that insurance company is putting pressure on them to get you back to work. Again, medical, that can be a big problem. Benefits, again, you might be in a situation where you should be getting weekly benefits because you either have to be completely off work or you have restrictions in place that your employer can't find a job for you to do. But it's not happening. For whatever reason, those weekly benefits aren't coming your way. And the problem with that is your financial life doesn't stop. You still have bills coming in, you have people in your family to feed, all those things, and it can be a very stressful time. So again, I remind you, be diligent, be persistent, and if you're not getting anywhere, find a lawyer that can help you. And then finally, on the settlement side of things, a lot of people don't realize that a settlement is part of work comp. And I get calls from people 6 months after they've been completely released from treatment, and they're telling me, hey, I was talking to a coworker and they asked me, how did that work comp claim come out for you? Did you get a settlement? They didn't even know they were supposed to get a settlement. The insurance company, they never voluntarily offered up anything. And so that's another aspect. And the settlement part is where you can really miss out if you don't have a lawyer on your side. And why do I say that? Because if you go through the settlement process on your own and you are left with what the work comp doctor is saying you have as a residual disability from this injury, it's going to be very low. It's going to be very conservative. And the insurance company, that's what they're going to use to make you a settlement offer. And if you don't have something to counter that, like your own doctor's report, you don't have any evidence to say, no, this doesn't seem right. I should be getting more for my disability. And again, that's where an experienced work comp lawyer comes in. They have you rated by an independent doctor who usually, lo and behold, is going to give you a much higher disability rating. And that doctor may think that you're entitled or you should be getting further evaluated, more treatment, whatever that looks like. You're going to have future medical needs, things like that. They're going to put that in their report. And now there's evidence to argue to get you more. And so it's just really critical that through any 3 of these phases, you know where to push, how to push, and if you don't, get good legal help. I can't stress it enough, because if you don't and you close that work comp claim out, you very well may end up with the short end of the stick when it's all over. And again, unfortunately, I see that. I see people calling, telling me they settled their work comp claim, but they're still having problems. And there's nothing that can be done at that point. It's done. So don't resolve your claim before talking to a lawyer. And to call us, it's always free. We're happy to run through the situation with you, see how we can help, if we can help. We're only going to get involved in a claim that we think we can be of significant benefit to our clients. So again, reach out. It will not hurt you. It could only hurt you to continue on your own. So next up, episode 2 of this 3-part series, we're going to talk about the first 90 days after a work injury, because here's the key. Mistakes early on will follow you potentially for years down the road. You can make mistakes in your work comp claim that can dramatically affect the benefits that you receive through the work comp system. So you'll want to make sure to tune in, catch episode 2, where we go over again that first 90-day timeline when an injury happens. And as always, I encourage you, reach out with any questions. If you have a friend or somebody you know that's hurt, share this episode with them. It cannot hurt. I can't say it enough. Until next time, be safe and be well.